Today we're going to be talking about Corsair Gaming, ticker CRSR. We're going to determine if Corsair is a buy, hold, or sell. And we're going to be looking at it in comparison to its biggest competitor, Logitech, and also to the general market, the S&P 500. Now we're going to start with looking at the price to sales ratio. Now Corsair trades at a 1.619 price to sales, which is extremely cheap in comparison to the market, which has a 3.14 price to sales, and its biggest competitor, Logitech, which has a 3.88 price to sales. So in case you don't know what a price to sales ratio is, it's basically saying how many times current year's sales are you paying for the valuation of the company. So in Corsair's case, it's just 1.6 times its current year sales. Now the next thing we're going to look at is actually the earnings, so the PE and the forward PE. Now the S&P 500 actually trades at a very high PE right now of 45.5, but it has a forward PE of 21, which is more in line with most stocks today. Now its biggest competitor, Logitech, has a 21.5 PE, and it actually has a higher forward PE of 25.4, so they're expecting worse earnings. Whereas Corsair trades at a 20.9 today, and it has a forward PE of 16.9. So the market actually expects its earnings to get higher because it's really still in its growth mode. So talking about growth, we're actually going to look at its most recent Q1 2021 revenue growth, and it's had on average a 47% CAGR over 2019 to 2020 to 2021 for Q1, and 72% growth year over year between Q1 of 2020 and Q1 of 2021. So its growth is increasing, 72% in the last year, whereas an average of 47% over the last 2 years. Then we're going to look at the top line growth revenue, not just Q1, but overall year over year. In 2018 to 2019 to 2020, it's been having an increased growth rate. So 17% year over year to 55% year over year, and 72% in the most recent quarter. So growth is actually accelerating, not even staying consistent, which is amazing for the stock. So now we're going to look at the gross profit growth in Q1 of 2019 to 2020 to 2021. And similar here, we have accelerating growth. So 104% growth year over year, which is insane. And that's just the average. It actually has more than that in the most recent quarter, 2020 to 2021. So growth is clearly not an issue right now for Corsair. And the gross margin expansion in the entire year, not just Q1, the gross margin has been going up in all its segments, as you can see on the right. And it's also been accelerating the growth in gross profit year over year from 2018 to 2019 to 2020, and then even more so from 2020 to 2021 in the most recent quarter. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is the total addressable market, the TAM. So Corsair has been expanding its product categories, and it's also expanding the different platforms you can basically use Corsair products in. So by doing that, it's basically getting an increased TAM. So it's showing how it went from 36 billion to just under 50 billion in a total addressable market from 2019 to 2020, and I expect that to keep growing. Now, they're showing in the most recent quarter that they increased their 2021 guidance. So that's another extremely bullish thing. They basically are seeing that in their most recent quarter, things are going so well that their old guidance, they wanted to push it up and say, you know what, we're going to actually do better in 2021 than we expected. So another very bullish thing. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is basically their assets versus their liabilities. This is something I'd like to check on companies to make sure that they're not basically have too much debt, that they can handle it. So their total current assets have been increasing every year, and not just their current, but their total assets as well. And their assets cover their liabilities, not only their current liabilities, but their assets cover their total liabilities, so their long-term debt as well, which is amazing. So the next question everyone's probably wondering is, where does the stock go from here? So I've made basically 3 scenarios to try to decide, where the stock could go from a price to sales ratio perspective, and also including growth. So the way I look at it is I don't want to assume they're going to have as much growth as they had in the past. And they very well might, and they might keep accelerating growth. But I want to be really conservative. So I try to model everything where it can really hit these numbers. So I made 3 projections of 15%, 20%, and 30% year over year growth. And those numbers get you to 3.4 billion, 4.2, and 6.3 billion in revenue through 2025. This is a 5-year chart. And that's basically going to, it's going to get the revenue much higher than it is today. And if we use a price sales ratio of just 1.619, which is its current price sales ratio, which is extremely, extremely conservative, in my opinion, you'll basically have a company worth 5.5 to 10.2 billion with that price to sales ratio, assuming 15% to 30% growth. But if we did a price to sales ratio like the S&P 500, you're going to have a much higher market cap. And that's going to basically get you upwards to up to 20 billion in market cap. Now, I looked at analysts and what they give the stock for the next 12 months a price target on tip ranks, and it actually has a $50 price target. So that's extremely bullish as well. It's only 3 analysts, but from those 3 analysts, they all have buy ratings. None of them have a hold rating. None of them have a sell rating. And the price target they're putting is $50 on average, which is basically significantly higher than the current 33 and change it's trading for right now. So in my opinion, the bottom line is Corsair is a buy. I am personally buying shares, and I do think this is the time to get it. I would be buying under 35, and if we get lucky enough that it gets under 30 again for some reason, I'll be adding more there as well. I definitely think, finding value in growth right now is hard to do, and this is one of those stocks that I think you can do that with. Now, if you made it to the end, if you could throw me a like, a comment, and subscribe, it really helps the YouTube algorithm. And if there's any companies you want me to take a look into and analyze, just write them down in the comments.